Women like Renee are temporary wives, not permanent family.
Then I saw my husband's mistress wearing the necklace he claimed was stolen.
Here's the finished narration-ready story, based on your concept and supporting material. At the Houston Country Club, my mother-in-law lifted her champagne glass and smiled directly at me. To temporary wives, Celeste Whitmore said, making cruelty sound like etiquette. They entertain our sons until they remember what permanent family looks like. The table laughed. My husband did too. I might have swallowed the insult like I had swallowed 100 others, but then the woman 3 chairs away touched the diamond necklace at her throat. It was vintage Cartier with an emerald clasp, the same necklace Grant had reported stolen from our bedroom safe 6 months earlier. The woman wearing it was Vanessa Cole, Whitmore Energy's lobbyist. Grant's hand rested on the back of her chair. That was when I stopped trying to become a Whitmore and started planning how to survive them. My name is Renee Lawson-Whitmore. I was 38, a corporate compliance attorney from Houston's South Side, raised by a refinery supervisor who believed rules mattered most when powerful people ignored them. My father, Calvin Lawson, died in a refinery explosion when I was 17. 7 other workers died with him. Grant entered my life 12 years later. He remembered my father's death anniversary, donated to a workers' memorial, and claimed his family's wealth made him uncomfortable. I believed I had married the one Whitmore with a conscience. At dinner, I stared at Vanessa's necklace until she noticed. "Beautiful piece," I said. "I've seen one exactly like it." Vanessa lowered her hand. "Grant found it through an estate dealer. 6 months earlier, Grant had blamed our housekeeper for stealing it. I had defended her, but Celeste still forced her out. I looked at my husband. Did he? Celeste set down her glass. Must we turn every pleasant evening into a deposition? I smiled. Only when the evidence is interesting. On the drive home, Grant accused me of embarrassing him. You laughed while your mother called me disposable, I said. It was a joke. So was the stolen necklace? His jaw tightened. Vanessa bought her own. Then she should have kept the receipt. He slept in the guest room. I stayed awake and made a list. Bank accounts, property records, insurance policies, corporate entities, tax returns. I had spent 14 years teaching companies to preserve evidence before regulators arrived. By sunrise, I was preserving my own. 3 days later, I found a wire transfer from our joint investment account to Red Oak Residential Holdings. Red Oak had purchased a $1.8 million River Oaks condo through a law firm Grant's family used for private transactions. I drove there during lunch and watched Vanessa step from a Range Rover registered to Red Oak. I photographed it, saved the property records, and hired a divorce attorney. "Do not move out yet," she told me. "Do not threaten him, and do not access anything you are not legally entitled to see." Grant mistook my silence for surrender. He sent flowers, booked a weekend in Napa, and started calling me Nene, the childhood nickname only my father and grandmother had used. I had once found it tender. Now it felt like surveillance. While reviewing our tax documents, I found annual payments from Whitmore Energy to Gulf Meridian Risk. The payments began the year Grant first asked me out. Gulf Meridian had no employees and one mailing address. A private box rented by Paul Danner, a retired investigator who had worked for the law firm defending the refinery after my father's death. I requested the public records from the old wrongful death case. My mother and the other families had settled quickly, told the explosion was caused by a supervisor who ignored procedure. That supervisor was my father. I had spent 21 years carrying the shame of that accusation. The public file contained a safety report, but pages were missing. A footnote referenced corrosion warnings that were nowhere in the record. Then I searched Whitmore Energy's acquisition history. 2 years after the explosion, the Whitmores bought the refinery's parent company cheaply. The settlement had cleared its biggest liability and laid the foundation for Grant's rise. The dead workers had not merely been a tragedy, they had been part of the price. I confronted Grant with one question. Why did your family's investigator keep receiving payments after my father's case closed? For 1 second, he looked frightened. Then anger took over. You went digging through company records, public records, and our tax returns. You're paranoid. Did your family know my father? Houston Energy is a small world. He stepped closer. Your mother rebuilt her life. The other families moved on. Don't drag everyone backward because you're angry about a necklace. That sentence told me more than a confession. I packed a bag and went to my mother's house. After I showed her the missing pages, she brought out a dented box containing my father's union pins, refinery badge, and a birthday card addressed to my nanny. Taped beneath it was a brass bank key. "He told me this was for your future," she whispered. I thought he meant college money. The next morning, I took the key, my father's death certificate, and probate records to the bank. A manager found an archived safe deposit agreement connected to a small trust. The trust was named Nanny's Tomorrow. Grant had not invented tenderness when he called me Nanny. Someone investigating my family had given him the name. Inside the box were flash drives, inspection photographs, handwritten shift logs, and a letter. My father wrote that pressure valves had failed repeated tests. He had reported corrosion and demanded a shutdown. Management ordered production to continue because a sale was being negotiated. After someone replaced his notes in the official system, he copied everything. At the bottom, he wrote, "Tell Nene I followed the rules. I need my girl to know I did not fail those men." I sat on the bank floor and sobbed. The files showed more than negligence. Emails referenced executives from the purchasing group who wanted the refinery's liabilities contained before transfer. One executive was Grant's father. Another message came from Celeste, then the family company's general counsel, recommending confidential settlements before federal inspectors expanded the inquiry. The final folder held surveillance reports about me, where I worked, whom I dated, how often I visited my mother. The report stopped the month Grant met me at a charity gala. I found him in our study that evening. "Did you marry me because you loved me?" I asked, "or because your family was afraid of me?" He went pale. "My mother wanted to know whether your family planned to reopen the case," he finally said. "I was supposed to meet you and keep things calm, but I fell in love with you. You watched me blame my father. I protected you from a fight you couldn't win. No, you protected your inheritance." For the first time, I saw the design of my marriage, the anniversary flowers, the donations, the way he discouraged me from reading old files, the pet name stolen from surveillance. My safe place had been built to keep me close, grateful, and quiet. I left with the evidence. I retained independent counsel, delivered forensic copies to federal investigators, and contacted lawyers for the 7 other families. 2 weeks later, Vanessa called me crying. Grant had promised her the condo was their future. In reality, Red Oak was also routing consulting payments and political gifts through documents bearing her name. "I thought I was replacing you," she whispered. "You were never replacing me," I said. "You were being positioned to take the fall." Vanessa cooperated. The investigation lasted 18 months. Grant was charged with shell company financial crimes and obstruction involving destroyed records. Celeste avoided prison, but regulators barred her from serving as an officer or director. Lenders and minority shareholders forced a restructuring, and the Whitmores lost control of the company. My divorce settlement returned every dollar Grant had diverted, plus my lawful share of the assets we built together. For the civil case, I joined a trial team as compliance and evidence counsel. My father's files and Vanessa's testimony secured a historic settlement for all 8 families and new safety requirements across the company's Gulf Coast facilities. At the final hearing, the judge approved a statement clearing my father of responsibility. My mother gripped my hand so tightly it hurt. I used part of my settlement to create the Calvin Lawson Workplace Safety Foundation. We fund whistleblower representation, independent inspections, and legal support for families told the truth is too expensive to pursue. A year later, I attended a memorial ceremony at the rebuilt refinery. 8 names were engraved in black granite. My father's name was no longer followed by supervisory error. It simply read, "Calvin Lawson, who warned them." I touched the stone and remembered Celeste's toast. She'd been right about one thing. I was never permanent family to the Whitmores. I was the temporary wife who survived long enough to become the permanent consequence. This version is approximately 1,500 words and structured for a 10-minute emotional narration.